All right, everybody, a good Saturday morning and happy game day. Welcome into AL.com's Alabama pregame show brought to you by Medical Properties Trust. I'm your host, Simone Eli. He's Matt Scalisi. Matt, excited that it's finally here. It actually kind of feels like fall weather in Alabama, so I kind of feel like everything is just coming together this morning.
It's absolutely gorgeous outside. I'm in Atlanta. I know it's that way in Birmingham too, but yeah, I ran out to grab breakfast this morning and just breathed it in, and it feels like football outside.
It feels fantastic. We are counting down to kickoff in Atlanta. Of course, the Chick-fil-A kickoff game. Alabama, the top-ranked team in the country, taking on number 14, Miami. I feel like, we've been talking about this all week. I just feel like this offseason has felt so long. Maybe with everything going on in the world, I don't know what, but we finally have reached game day. I can't wait. Alabama, Miami, a top 25 matchup. Nick Saban has never shied away from opening up with a very good opponent. I mean, if good is maybe a loose term for some of them, but a quality opponent, a Power 5 opponent that's not necessarily happening over on the Plains today. But Nick Saban, Alabama, going to take on Miami team who's been pretty strong throughout.
Yeah, I mean, I think Miami has been in a rebuilding phase for a really long time. We've seen them cycle through some coaches. It felt like Mark Richt kind of had something going there for a little while, but he dipped out after a pretty short period of time. The Miami fan base is very hungry. They I think are a little reminiscent of where this Alabama fan base was before Saban got there. They feel like they remember what it was like to be great and to be on top of college football, and they're so hungry to be back there, and they have not had that taste of it yet in this cycle of coaches they've been trying to go through.
No doubt. Guys, keep your comments coming. We're excited to bring some of those up throughout the show. I want to jump right in to one of the main topics, Matt, when it comes to this game. That's, of course, going to be the quarterback play. Everyone wants to know, what is Bryce Young going to look like as the now Alabama starter, proven himself throughout all of fall camp, the offseason, spring practice, as the guy in Tuscaloosa, taking on Derek King, a dual threat guy over in Miami. Of course, they're taking on, everyone talks head-to-head when it comes to quarterbacks, but these are the stats from last year. Of course, they are deceiving. Bryce Young was the backup to Mac Jones. Derek King, the starter throughout before he was injured in their bowl game. But looking at these numbers, Matt, the expectations are high for Bryce Young, and, the Bama fan base, they expect things to be looking pretty good early on.
Yeah, no, I think that Bryce Young is walking into a pretty high-pressure situation. I think you're the next guy in a line of the most successful string of quarterbacks in Alabama history, right? We've been talking about it for the last couple of weeks. The three guys that came before you in this job are all starting in the NFL this season. So there couldn't be bigger expectations and higher pressure to live up to. I think Bryce Young has the confidence of Nick Saban and the rest of the coaching staff. We've heard from some of his teammates who seem to have a lot of good things to say about him. We watched him in high school. I have certainly gone through his recruiting footage a bit. He's a very talented guy. I think he will remind folks a lot of Tua, but he's not exactly like Tua. He's a different flavor of quarterback than we've seen at Alabama, but a little bit of a combination of the last three guys I think that we've seen.
Yeah, what I love about Bryce Young already in the couple times we've gotten to speak to him, including this game week, is just his poise. I mean, this is a young guy still who really hasn't played a lot of significant downs for Alabama. And to see how he has been in the media, to see how he has led his team throughout practice, and obviously has the confidence of the coaching staff, let's all remember that he hasn't played a significant down of football at the collegiate level, and he's walking right into this with his head held high, a lot of confidence, very well spoken in the media. I mean, he's checking every single box. On top of that, Matt, he has a defense that I think is going to help. I think they're going to have a lot of opportunities offensively, because I think we're going to see a lot of 3-and-outs throughout the entire season, not necessarily in this game. But I think that's going to benefit Bryce Young immensely, because the defense is going to hold their own with the veteran guys that the Tide has. I think that's going to help this offense. You don't see that throughout the country very often when you have a talented quarterback sometimes who's a younger guy, and on the other side, you have a defense that struggles. And so you're out there, you're kind of like on your last lifeline, trying to just move the ball, and the defense didn't help you out too much. So I think that is going to benefit Bryce Young not only in this game but throughout the season.
Take some pressure off for sure, and I think for a young guy that can be a big difference when you are still developing as a quarterback and you're developing. I mean, they talk so much about how much of a mental position that is, and how much confidence plays into it. When you are a young quarterback, you're still developing mentally. You're sort of growing as a player, and you're trying to build confidence in how well you know the offense. How do you know where your guys are out there on the field? Do you trust your offensive line to protect you? Sure. Those things can become a problem for you long term if you sort of lose that confidence early in your career. And we've seen that happen to some really talented guys over the years. So, yes, you're right. I think having defense is a big part of that support. I think also, as Nick Saban has talked about, other guys around Bryce Young have to play well to help him be a good quarterback. And I mean, are they replacing a lot of guys? Yes. Are the guys they're being replaced with also probably high school All-Americans? Yes. So if you have to start as a young player, Bryce Young's probably in about the best position you could ask to be in.
Yeah. Well, another year and another new offensive coordinator in Tuscaloosa in Bill O'Brien. And Saban was asked about Bill O'Brien earlier during fall camp, during preseason practice, about how do you kind of bring in a guy who has led his own NFL program. We're not even talking about college, but has led his own NFL program for multiple years with Texans. What does that look like when you bring in a coach who does his own thing? And Saban rolled right through it. And what I didn't find it as a cliche answer. Straight up said, everyone's got to buy in. And we've had no issues with Bill O'Brien buying in. He's putting his own twist on things, but ultimately they're going to stick to their guns with what they do offensively. But what does it look like today in terms of how things have been under Steve Sarkisian, obviously at Texas now? Bill O'Brien trying to get his feet wet back in the college game. Is he conservative early on? What do you kind of expect here offensively?
Yeah, I do think that from what we've seen over the years as Alabama has cycled through offensive coordinators is it's never really a hard reset. We've obviously seen Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian bring different things to the table, and Brian Dable too. But they always seem that there's a lot of carryover. They do not just come in and say, this is my offense now. It's going to look totally different. No. It's Alabama's offense, and you can bring new things to the table and you can add things to it. But it has to be built around the identity of the program and the players that have been recruited there. So I expect that from Bill O'Brien today too. I think that you will see something that doesn't look completely unfamiliar from what you've seen the last few years. Sure. But over the course of the season, I think you will start to see new wrinkles be folded in, and we will start to see what it is that Bill O'Brien brings that's different to this offense. I don't know what that's going to be yet. I think Nick Saban has confidence that he is going to bring something, and I think that experience that he had in the NFL probably was very attractive to Saban. Sure. So, I honestly, I think today will be the time that it looks the most like previous season Alabama offenses. I don't think they're gonna pull all the tricks out of the bag today.
Sure. Yeah, Alabama not known for that for sure. I think that today is going to be a good trial period, not only for Bryce Young and Bill O'Brien, but Bryce Young and his teammates. Like you said a minute ago, there's new guys being plugged in. Yes, they were probably high school All-Americans, but at the end of the day, those guys have to come together on a field in Atlanta, an incredible stadium against a pretty good Power 5 program in Miami. And that's a lot of different factors that equal a lot of pressure. And Bryce Young was asked about this earlier this week when it comes to getting guys around him to step up, because Saban said a couple of times he's looking for more consistency throughout not only the offensive line, but receiving core. And Bryce Young had pretty good confidence. That was a big word he kept saying, confidence in his teammates. Here's what he had to say.
I have all the confidence in the world in my teammates. We are striving for consistency and we're striving for greatness, but it's not just one particular player, one particular group. Us as a whole, we all are working to be better each and every day, more consistent. So I have supreme confidence in all my teammates. They're guys that, really we've been able to come closer and grow together this offseason. So I have all the confidence in the world in the people I'm playing with, and we're all working towards that, that level of success and that standard that Saban sets for us collectively.
Listen, I'm just impressed by that. I just love the way that this kid talks. To me, shouldn't call him a kid, he's a young man, but the way he talks, to me, this is probably how he also speaks to his team in huddles. I mean, to him in pregame. And I feel like guys look up to that. Obviously, as adults, you and I think we look to that and we're like, wow, okay, this kid's pretty impressive. I mean, he's a young guy. I just love the message that he's putting out there, and making sure that his teammates know, hey, I got your back, you got mine. That is so huge, not only at Alabama, but in college football.
I mean, I would say that's a huge part of being a quarterback. It's the leadership part of the job is really what separates really talented quarterbacks from great, successful championship quarterbacks. Is do they get everybody around them to play well? Do they get everybody else to buy in?
Yeah.
I think Bryce Young having confidence in his teammates, again, I'll go back, not to take anything away from Bryce or from any of his teammates, but when you play at Alabama, it's a little bit easier to have confidence in your teammates because you're surrounded by incredible talent at every position. So, again, these are guys who have to execute. They have to get the job done when they're out there. But Alabama is always going to be starting on third base when it comes to a lot of the problems that are a lot tougher for most college football programs. Alabama has such a talent advantage over everyone else, such a organizational advantage, that they are in a great spot. And the question is, can you get it done when it's your turn to be called upon?
Definitely. I want to look at the other side just a little bit in this Miami team. A name that we're familiar with throughout the state over here, and that's Rhett Lashley, the offensive coordinator for the Hurricanes. Last year, his first season at Miami, of course, they were 8-3. He was a Broyles Award finalist, and a lot of folks were very impressed with the step that Miami took offensively. Of course, De'Aaron King, the quarterback there, but averaged 34 points, which I think was a 10-point difference from the previous year. 32nd in the country in total offense. Now, I know that you look at those numbers and you want them to kind of may see the difference in the record necessarily. And then we were talking about that a minute ago when it comes to the Canes fan base. They're hopeful. They have high confidence in what they can do. But Rhett Lashley, a huge part of the success, so to speak, that Miami has had offensively so far, Matt.
Yeah, and he's a name we're familiar with up here. I think there was a lot of, I think he had some success at Auburn. I don't think that Auburn fans ended on a good note with Rhett Lashley. I think that they
I don't think Gus ended on a good note with Rhett Lashley.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Yeah, but that happened with more than one person in Auburn.
Exactly, it is a common theme.
Yeah, but he has, I think, also been able to at Miami sort of have a reset and go. Look, I'm not trying to be this guy who's a big SEC homer, SEC cheerleader versus the ACC.
Okay with that on this show.
but it's not the same thing. The ACC has a lot of really good teams and even a couple of great teams, but there are more teams in the ACC when you are a Miami type program that just cannot compare to you talent wise. Alabama, even in its down weeks most years, and true at Auburn as well when Rhett Lashley was there, every team you play, even the bad ones, have pretty good talent, pretty close talent to you. And I think that sort of gives a little bit of space for a guy like Rhett Lashley to develop his offense and build confidence in his guys. They've also obviously got a great recruiting base down there in South Florida. So not surprising to me that he's had some more success down there.
Yep. Well, Nick Saban, of course, asked about this and any sort of similarities that he has seen from Rhett Lashley, preparing for a Rhett Lashley Miami team to preparing for a Rhett Lashley Auburn team back in the day. And here's what Saban had to say.
I think he's done an outstanding job. They're very productive on offense. They've got really good skill players. They spread you out. They do some things that are, similar to Auburn, but I think their tempo is even greater than what Auburn is in terms of how fast they play and how that can affect defensive players. And it's also a difficult preparation. And I think they are very well tied together in terms of, what they do in a running game as well as what they do in a passing game. So I have a lot of respect for, him as an offensive coach. And, I think he's done an outstanding job with the players that he has at Miami.
Nick Saban there talking about Miami offensive coordinator Rhett Lashley, previously at Auburn. Of course, it helps when you have a quarterback like you have in Derek King, and the stats that he can put on the field, not only in the air, but on the ground as well. Something I think is going to play a big part in today's game day kickoff at 2:30 Central Time in Atlanta is the crowd noise factor, Matt. And Saban was asked about this as well, but I want to get your take on it. Last year, there was very limited crowd. This year, it's back in full action. And some of these guys who are now these second-year veteran-type players who maybe didn't have a whole lot of experience their freshman season, these rising juniors necessarily, maybe rising sophomores that play a significant role. This is going to kind of be their first experience. You and I have both been inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta before, and it can get rowdy. It can get loud. Bama fans travel well. Miami fans are fired up for the start of the season. Everyone wants college football. How does noise play a factor in this game?
Well, I think it's going to work in Alabama's favor for one thing. I think that a thing that a lot of people may not be aware of because Miami has such a strong brand is it's not the biggest fan base in the world. They don't have a ton of alumni. They're a relatively small school, and they're probably going to be pretty substantially outnumbered in this stadium today. It's going to be mostly Alabama fans, and I do think that there's going to be some pent up emotion from a lot of these folks. This will be for many people the first football game they've been to in person in a long time. So I think they're going to be ready to get out there. Hopefully everybody's safe. By the way, they do have the roof open today. But I think just in terms of look, let's not totally avoid it. The COVID factor also, I think. At least some of the folks who are at this game today are maybe not 100% used to being back out in a crowd of people again. They don't fully know how to behave, what's the right way to do it. So I'm curious to see what it sounds like from inside the stadium. I'm obviously going to be in the media areas, but hopefully I'll still be able to hear enough of it. I think that it will be an interesting experiment throughout this season to see. They're letting everybody back into the stadium. They're going the full stadium route. Hopefully, everybody behaves as safely as they possibly can if they are making that choice to go to these games. But I'm curious to see is it just going to sound like 2019 again? Is it going to be somewhere in between?
Yeah. Judging by the little taste of college football that we've gotten the last couple of days, it felt very, 2 years ago. I watched the UCF game up until super late in the night, a couple other games, even Tennessee and Bowling Green. And, I think fans are just fired up. And like you said, you hope that there's a responsibility factor, of course. The roof is going to be open. I'm not really sure how much the roof being open at Mercedes-Benz Stadium makes it.
It's really, really high up there.
It really doesn't. Oh, I've been there many times.
That roof hole is it feels like it's about a mile above your head when you're in that stadium.
It is a mile, and it's like this big compared to the rest of the stadium. So, it is kind of funny. But anyways, Nick Saban was asked about crowd noise. How players are going to kind of get reacclimated to what that looks like this season. And here was his take.
Well, I think, anytime you're playing when you're a player, crowd noise does make a difference in a game, which we didn't have to deal with a whole lot a year ago. So a lot of the players that have played, last year, they'll have to get reacclimated to that. But I think being able to communicate with hand signals and not as much relying on verbal communication is always very important. So I think there is, some adjustment that players have to make. It's something that they have to get used to, and we try to do that by simulating it in practice as much as we can.
Obviously, Saban pumping in crowd noise throughout practice this week. I think that'll play a big factor for quarterback Bryce Young, but also Bama fans are smart, okay? They're going to travel well, and Bama fans know that when your team is on the field offensively, short of being in the end zone, let's bring it down a notch or two. Let's let our first-year starter quarterback kind of be able to hear what's going on and go through the motions properly. Some of these fan bases just get fired up throughout, but Bama fans, they're used to success. They know what it takes as a fan base to maybe not overload their young quarterback with noise when they don't need to. And you said earlier, it's going to be outnumbered. I mean, Bama fans are going to take over Atlanta like they always do. So I expect the crowd noise to not play a huge significant factor, but it will be interesting throughout the entirety of the year what that looks like, especially in terms of Bryce Young.
Yeah, I think that just based on my past experience of games in Atlanta, I would guess that, I mean, I think pregame it'll be hype. I think it'll be really loud. I think when the game actually starts, especially game one of the season, new starting quarterback,
Yeah.
I think there will be a sort of a little bit of tension in the crowd, and that makes folks go a little quiet, I think, as they're waiting to see. I think that's what it's going to be about in that first quarter is everybody in the stadium saying, show us what you got, Bryce Young. Like, let's see what you are. And if Alabama starts to take off, I think it'll start to get real loud in there in a hurry.
Yeah. All right. I want to make some quick notes before we head on out. Again, kickoff is at 2:30 in Atlanta, Alabama, and Miami. Kind of some breaking news this morning in Lane Kiffin announcing that he will not be traveling with his team, Ole Miss, of course, because of a breakthrough case of COVID-19 for Lane Kiffin. So Bama fans, they love him some Lane Kiffin. The guy's entertaining. He's a great coach. Unfortunate circumstance for him here in week one of the year.
Yeah, and I think if you read his statement, which I would encourage everybody to go and do, Lane Kiffin, I would say, has responded to this news really well. He said, look, we all did the right thing on our team, and because everybody on the team is vaccinated, I'm the only person who got sick. I didn't give it to anybody else. Everybody else is going to be able to play in this game. Mm-hmm. And my symptoms are not really bad right now. So it's, even though obviously unfortunate, and as we know, people can still get COVID even if you are vaccinated, but because he was vaccinated, seems like he's going to have a very mild case. He will sit out the game, and then he'll be back to business again. So, ultimately an unfortunate thing to happen, but it seems like because Ole Miss was smart about this, they're in much better shape than they would have been otherwise.
Yeah, definitely. Sticking with the theme of former Alabama offensive coordinators, you had a little bit of a bold prediction, Matt, before we went live, and I would like for you to put that out there when it comes to this Texas game. I'm not putting my name on this. I'm just gonna let you have this one.
You're just gonna throw me out there for this?
Right under that bus. This is all you.
So a game that I've got my eye on today is Texas in their first game under Steve Sarkisian going up against Louisiana. And I know a lot of people are going to look at that and say, oh, it looks like a cupcake game out of the gate. Louisiana is ranked right now, and they are for a reason. And that's because Billy Napier has built them into a really strong program. Former Saban assistant has built a really strong team down there and really was one of the most desired names in the coaching market this offseason. And he's in such good shape at this point that he looked around at a lot of these open jobs that were coming after him and said, I think I'm doing fine here.
Yeah,
I can wait and pick my shot. And he's really got something rolling with the Raging Cajuns. I don't know what Steve Sarkisian's going to have. I know he recruited really well out of the gate at Texas, but is that team going to be bought into what he's doing right away? I mean, if they're not, this could be a dicey game for Texas.
Yeah, all gas, no brakes. We'll see if that will actually that trend will continue there in Austin. Another big one, of course, Georgia at Clemson, a top 5 matchup. There's been a lot of talk about whether the outcome of that game impacts who the number 1 team in the country is. I don't think it does. I think as long as Alabama rolls against Miami, they continue to be number 1 until they're not number 1. The only way that is if they take a loss. The defending national champs went perfect a season ago. I think that's very telling for the Tide, but a game to keep an eye on. I know a lot of fans will be checking this one out.
This is a right out of the gate, the kind of fun stuff that you want to see from college football. It's huge. I mean, I like you said, I agree. I think the loser of this game still has a great shot to win everything at the end of the season, but still feels high stakes. I know both teams are going to be going all out for it. They're not going to treat it like it doesn't matter. And it's going to be a huge atmosphere. So, and it's perfect timing too, because Bama fans will be done with their game. They'll be back home, and they can kick back and watch this game. They can watch 2 teams that they might end up facing in the postseason at some point, and they can watch them battle it out. So perfect ending to a great week 1 college football Saturday.
Yeah. A perfect ending to this show, Matt. Kickoff right around the corner. It's going to be a good one. Alabama and Miami, 2:30 in Atlanta. I can't wait. You're in Atlanta. You're going to be there. That's
I
exciting.
will be there. Yeah, tons of coverage coming from us, by the way. And Simone and I will be live again post game about half an hour after the game or so. So check back in wherever you're watching this right now. And thanks to our friends at Medical Properties Trust for sponsoring our pregame show. And we will see you guys after the game.
Medical Properties Trust, at the very heart of healthcare.